So welcome everyone to this Instagram Live. Today we're going to be talking about a very important topic that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Kind of just feels like second nature at this point, but I think, I would put our Instagram Lives into two different buckets in terms of categories of what we talk about. I think one category is talking about things that are more data-driven, economics, rent growth, things that are more related to where the market is, cap rates, interest rates, politics, those kinds of things, right? And things that I kind of find a little bit more boring. But the second bucket of things that we talk about is like what we're going to be talking about today, which is I'd call human behavior, which I find to be personally find to be much more interesting, which deals a lot with why people do what they do and motivating factors and the motivating variables behind people's decisions to make a lot of times life-changing decisions within real estate. So, this is something that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, is really talking with lots of people and sometimes getting kind of slapped in the face with no, and no.
Yeah, we have some.
I think you got to take the wheel with that.
No. Yeah, we have some good stories, and I think we'll get into the deal stories and share what it's like on the front lines of real estate and dealing with rejection. But the truth is, like, this is an industry of rejection. We've talked about why people sell their properties. There has to be motivation, and it may take people 5, 10, 15 years to decide to sell, if not longer, right? There's some people that never sell, but there's it's a really saturated business when you look at how many brokers there are, how many owners there are, and how many buyers there are. So the amount of brokers that are calling sellers and sellers are telling them, don't ever call me again, I'm never selling. And you keep calling them every 6 months.
And those are the nice people that say that.
And there's probably 10 people calling them a week or a month. So brokers are seeing rejection every single day. They make thousands of cold calls a month in order to find one seller a month or one seller every couple months that is going to sell their building. And then on our end, we have to look through, we've talked about this too, like we source 100 to 200 deals a month just to find the one a month that we're going to buy, which means, the amount that we don't that don't even make the 1 to 200 cut, then of the 200 that make the cut, we end up buying one. You can see the amount of rejection that we go through and the amount of negotiations and no that we hear from brokers and sellers. And then once we find the deal, then we got to go to our investor base, and then it has to fit the criteria of our investors, where they're saying, yeah, I want to do the deal. And a lot of them are saying, hey, it's not the right time. I don't want to put my money in this deal. I don't like the location, right? So everywhere we go, there's rejection. And I'll let you say this, but I'll say it first, is we're looking to grow the Goldfinger group. And part of that growth is bringing on somebody who's going to help us with acquisitions, help us source deals. And I think the big thing that we always get across is that it's hard. It's really hard to get a deal based on the amount of rejection you're going to get.
Yeah, we've been interviewing people who've been interested in, because of COVID, everyone's Zooming these days. So I've been doing a lot of Zoom interviews, and my goal in those preliminary Zoom interviews with people who want to work in the acquisitions department with us is to really scare off as many people as possible, because I want people to know how difficult it is or how long it takes and what it takes to source properties, because so many people see the glamour, the glitz, and the good times of celebrating and closing, but they don't see what goes into it. And I got news for you, it's not all glamour and glitz, and I'm sure a lot of people who are either brokers or owners in this business that are watching will agree, especially starting out. It's like, what do you have? Like, you're calling me for what? Like, what are you going to do? Like, you're starting off in this job, in this business. What value can you really add? And people have to kind of look within and say, well, who am I? What do I have to offer? And why should someone take the time out of their day to speak with me? And how can I add value to that person so that I'm really worth their time? But I think what we can do is kind of so back to the interviews. I try to scare off as many people as possible with the truth, which is that it took me a year to close my first deal. I started off calling on owners in Santa Monica and Venice. No other brokers in that market. There's no competition. I mean, it's only like the most desirable part of of America. So why I started there was sheer stupidity, but because I'm really passionate about the beach. I love the ocean breeze, and I just see so much, like we talked about last time, so much inherent value on the west side. And so I've always really, really liked Santa Monica and Venice. And so I called on those markets, but it did take me a year to close my first deal. I think we have gotten to escrow around the year mark, and then probably closed it 14, 15 months in. And it depends what kind of market you start in, depends what kind of background you come from. It also depends how old you are. I was 23 at the time, and now I'm 33. There's a lot of variables that take play, but one thing that we can all agree on is that it doesn't matter where you're at in the life cycle of this business, of your career. Real estate is a 99% rejection business, and there's definitely ways to bring that down to maybe 85% by being more strategic and knowing who to go after. And I think one of the things that we stress with people that we work with in acquisitions is in this business you have time and information, and the way to become efficient with your time is to understand what is a waste of time and what is a good utilization of time. And a lot of that has to do with the people that you're dealing with and what kind of motivations are there in their lives, or if they're just trying to chase a crazy number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about motivation, and the big way to sort through rejection, like you just said, is figure out, well, where should I be spending my time? And a really successful broker in the industry, I asked him, I'm like, okay, you're a young guy, you're in your 30s, you're working West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, another super saturated market, sophisticated owners, people who own for 30, 40 years, never sell. Like, what's made you successful? And he's like, I figured out where to spend my time and where not to. And I focus on people who are motivated, deals that I see selling and selling at the right price, like not somebody saying, yeah, I'll sell it for 10 million when it's only worth 7. So time value identification is huge. And, I came in on the principal side working with you about 3 years ago, which is, could be an easier place to start if you are able to identify building value and what makes a good deal and what's not, which is we talked about on our Instagram lives. And it took me 6 months to get my first deal under contract. And it's like I had to spend, and I tell people now who come in and join us on acquisitions, it's like when you come in, you just got to be pounding the phones, setting meetings, like getting after it. The only thing you should be doing is sourcing deals, finding motivated sellers, and working through the amount of rejection that you're going to get the deal. And that's really what it takes, is like, can you put up with the rejection? And that's the biggest key for us. Like, one of our biggest principles when we're interviewing and people we want to bring on and what's going to make somebody successful is like, are you going to get deterred by the rejection, or are you going to use that to fuel you and look at it, hey, I'm closer, like I'm one more call closer or one deal closer to getting my next property closed.
The only thing that everyone just heard is that it took me a year to close my first deal, and it took Max half the time. But that's because he had a great mentor.
Exactly. It's all about the teacher. So, yeah, and I believe you were going to say, like, well, let's get into the deal stories, right? Is that what you were going to say?
It felt like story time,
Yeah.
Why not?
I'll grab my pillow and a blanket and some popcorn. And
Sure, bring a friend.
Yeah, why don't you tell us about, like, the first deal you got under contract as a broker, or like the most interesting deal, I guess.
Okay, so no, I'll tell you about the first deal I got under contract as a broker. I called an owner in Venice Beach, and I said to her, we got talking, and I said, do you know what your building is worth? And she said, or maybe I said, what do you think your building is worth? The more open-ended way of asking, which is, if you're calling owners, use open-ended questions. How do you feel? Why do you feel? What do you think your building is worth? And she said, I don't know. So I said, oh, why don't you know? Don't you think you should know? But that would be closed-ended. Why don't you know? And she said, oh, I just, never really looked into it. So I said, well, look, I think you should know. And she said, why? I said, well, do you own stocks? And she said, yep. I said, well, you can check on those every day. I think that it's important for owners to, every 6 to 12 months, get a checkup, see what your building is worth, look at the comps, look at the valuation. And she said, okay, sounds good. What do you need? So I said, send me the rent roll. I tried to close her for a meeting, but she wouldn't. She's like, nah. And it was like pre-Zoom. No one, it wasn't like, let's Zoom about it. So she said, yeah, I'll send you the rent roll and, tell me what it's worth. So I sent her, actually, no, I told her, look, I put it together. It took a lot of time. I want you to come into the office and we can meet. So we came into the office, showed her the valuation. And then she said, look, I'm not looking to sell this one, but I have another property in Echo Park. You guys mind taking a look at that property and telling me what it's worth? So went out to that property in Echo Park, did another valuation from her, sat down again, showed her what it's worth. And, she said, and then listed it with a different broker. No, she actually called back about like 4 or 6 months later. And she actually emailed and she said, what do you guys, what do you think it's worth today? And
well, you told her check in every 6 to 12
right,
months.
exactly.
You set yourself up for that.
Yeah, and so she basically, what ended up happening was that she had an exchange property to buy. Like she found something else closer to her where she lives that she was like really interested in buying, and she needed to sell something. She said, okay, she had enough equity in the Venice property to sell it, and then she did successfully trade into that property closer to home for her. So it was good all around. And I'll just tell you, there was, I don't know how many thousands of phone calls before that deal closed. So I remember how ecstatic I was just to get the listing. I mean, I think I called 30 of my relatives to tell them, hey, have faith in me, I got a listing. And then
but a listing's not even a closing. A listing is like, hey, now we got to go find a buyer, then we got to go to contract, and then we got to
right. So, but I guess the point is that was my first deal. Took probably 14 months from starting in the cold calling till getting to a closing. And then on the acquisition side, I think we were looking at that one on Venice Boulevard.
Yep.
That you and I took down. And
my second deal. It was my first year in the business. You had been calling him. You called him as a broker, right? Mm-hmm. Originally, when you were at Marcus.
Well, no, what happened was the owner had actually listed the property. The owner of that Venice property, right. He was a broker himself.
And he listed himself.
And he listed himself.
At $5 million?
Like $5.5 million. And I love this property because it's on a double lot and on Venice Boulevard, great part of Mar Vista. And I offered on it through directly to the owner. And for like a year and a half, I was like following up with him every month, checking in, hey, can we get a deal done? And then finally, he ended up not selling it himself and listing it with a broker that we know.
4.2.
Something like that, yeah.
So he came. So like a year and a half later, he drops his price, 20%. Then we're trying to work the deal, or you had somebody else in the office doing acquisitions, working the deal. Then I came in and like on my own had called, and I came to you and I was like, hey, here's where a deal gets done, and you're like,
oh, sorry, dude.
Yeah, we've been working on this forever. But I was like, well, look, this is where it's deliverable. So we got strategic with the brokers, and we're like, hey, like, how can we get this to the finish line? Like, this is the seller's goals. This is our goal. Like, how can we do it? And we went under contract. Everybody kind of chipped in a little bit. The seller chipped in a little bit. We chipped in. The brokers chipped in, and we were able to get the deal done. But 2 years go by from $5.5 million to 3.8. All of a sudden, it happens.
Yeah.
And then there's another deal that we closed.
Oh, tell them about the one in Mid-City.
The one in Mid-City?
Okay.
Perfect. So Mid-City was a deal we closed in September, 8 units. It was listed. I think I offered like full price when it was listed, and then she was like, no, they want more than full price. Then why not list it for higher? They ended up not getting it. Seller obviously wasn't motivated. They took it off the market. I followed up on it for, I think, about a year while it was off market. I just kept calling the broker. And a year goes by and she came back to me and she said, hey, look, I think the seller's ready to go. If you're still at 1.8 million, like, let's do the deal. Funny enough, like, we signed the contract and then she puts it on the market after we, it was a whole thing. But that was close to 2 years of chasing this deal that we finally closed on it. And I think 95% of the properties we buy take, like, it's the second, third, fourth pass where we finally get the deal.
Yeah, and just, the point of this Instagram Live is not, oh, we're so great. I mean, everyone, the clear takeaway everyone should have is that Matt's closest first sale in half the amount of time that I did. That's the only thing you guys should remember.
No, that's why you hired me.
Right, exactly. The point of this Instagram Live is really to kind of give encouragement to people, to tell people, hey, look, you're going to see the glitz, the glam, everything looks beautiful and rosy, but the truth of the matter is that if you want to make it in this business, especially starting off, there's going to be a lot of rejection. It's going to take time. It's going to take, call it an FU business, a follow-up business, right? You got to follow up. You got to be persistent, and you got to be persistent in a way that you're not pissing other people off, like you're not bothering people, you're actually adding value to them. So really the point of this again is to give encouragement to people who are out there that are working their butts off, trying to find deals, trying to find sellers, and trying to make money out there, right? And we just want to give you guys encouragement to let you know that, like, there's a deal out there. We're always happy to write offers on properties that are value add, where we can execute a business plan. If there's anyone that has a deal that they're working on, the seller says, bring me an offer. We're happy to talk about it and add value to you in any way that we can. In fact, like, if anyone wants to call me and talk about you need motivation throughout the day, like, I'm happy to talk to people, because I really feel like that's what this business is about. It's about people. And it's like, how can you add value to other people? And so, like, that's like a sincere offer. And, like, it's partially like we're all motivated by self-interest, right? Like, I'm motivated to build relationships with others, and I can add value to some people by, like, giving them encouragement and inspiration. And in turn, like, if you're able to really help someone with that, they're gonna, I'll be the first person that they'll think of when they get a deal, hopefully. And if not, then not. But it's still a nice thing to do.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you said, if you can fight through that rejection, like I promised you, like, the rejection's almost a silver lining, because once you break through it, like, the world is, I wouldn't say it's yours, like, you're gonna always still face rejection, but that's where the success comes on that other side. So.
And just remember, if we can do it, so can you.
Absolutely.
We believe in you. We don't know who you are, but we believe in you.
All right, that's it for this week. Check in with us. If you have any questions, just reach out, and stay tuned. 2 more weeks. We'll keep coming out with good content, good information.
Adios.